Chapter 9. Elliot had just finished up a meeting with Mary and Joseph, the owners of the inn. And yes, he had seen the irony the first time he met them. When he told his mom he was working on an inn for Mary and Joseph, she'd thought he was joking. Unfortunately, they weren't joking at all when they added new specifications for the main house during their meeting, and now he needed to update the plans again, but it would all be worth it when it was done. Renovating a historic building of this size and scope was his dream job. The inn had been around since 1801, according to his research, and had consistently hosted guests since then. The main building had gorgeous pillars and 2 levels of porches out front. It was a classic New England colonial with low ceilings and wood beams in the small lobby, and a sitting room complete with a big, cozy fireplace. The 24 guest rooms had various levels of historical accuracy, as they'd been redone at different times. Over the years, without a lot of attention paid to the age of the building, the carriage house, also original to the property, was being used as an event space, probably what Daisy's ex had been up here looking at with his fiancée. Unfortunately, the whole property hadn't been well maintained through the years, and the repairs hadn't always made sense with the original style. He'd like to have a serious discussion with whoever decided to carpet the lobby and cover over the brick fireplace with river stones more appropriate for a hunting lodge than an inn. But those were easy fixes, more design than structural. The main part of his job so far had been redesigning the motel-style rooms that were added to the inn in the 1970s. They'd been tacked on to create more rooms for guests, but they didn't match the style or the quality of the rest of the inn, not to mention the new modern spa that had been added just a few years ago. As it stood now, the whole property was a hodgepodge of time periods and styles. It was Elliot's job to make it all make sense. He loved it. After spending years working on old houses with Caleb, alongside his architecture studies, he was thrilled to work on something like this, something that was all his. He'd been working on his designs for months, and it was nearly time to break ground. Or it would be, if Mary and Joseph stopped changing their minds and adding to the scope of the project. Today, they were discussing the possibility of converting the sunroom at the back of the inn into a breakfast room. Elliot assured them that adding breakfast to the inn's offerings was a great idea. Assuming that room was structurally sound, something he now had to get a structural engineer out. The room had essentially been used as a fear to assess rehouse for years. If it was going to accommodate humans, he had to make sure it was safe, but that was a task for tomorrow. On his way out, he stopped at the front desk nestled under the main staircase to chat with Jack. Jack, who was always impeccably dressed without a hair out of place, was a fellow Dream Harbor transplant. He'd moved to town a few years before Elliot, and he was one of the few people in Dream Harbor who knew Elliot existed. Without Jack, Elliot was pretty sure the inn would have completely fallen apart by now. Jack knew every guest that checked in, he made sure everyone was treated like a VIP, and he was the main reason Elliot got hired. Apparently, he'd seen some of the houses Elliot had worked on nearby, and was a fan of his work. At this point, Elliot was here so much, he and Jack had struck up a friendship. Or at least Elliot hoped he could consider Jack a friend. That would be nice. He needed a friend that he wasn't fake dating. "Hey," he said, swiping a muffin from the basket Jack kept at the desk. Lemon poppy seed and clearly from the gingerbread bakery. "Absolutely delicious." "Those are for guests," Jack said, half-heartedly swatting his hand away. "And for people that don't keep secrets." "What secrets?" "Oh, I don't know." "How about that you've been dating the cursed florist for a month now and haven't mentioned a word about it, and I had to hear it from her ex of all people." Jack ran his palms down his floral printed, smoothing out the already immaculate fabric, insulted by this oversight. Elliot sighed. "I thought we were friends," Jack said accusingly, and that was what did it. If Elliot had actually managed to min a friend, he certainly wasn't going to lie to him. More friends as an adult was nearly impossible. He was sure he'd only made this one by hanging around the inn so much, thinking and planning and sketching, and Jack was here, and kind. And a little bit nosy, always asking Elliot about his plans, peering over his shoulder at his drawings. And he had a vest for every season, which Elliot found charming. It was friendship by forced proximity, but Elliot would take it. "It's not real." Jack rolled his eyes. "It hasn't been that long. Of course it's not really serious yet." "No." Elliot shook his head and lowered his voice. "I's not real at all. We're just pretending." Jack's eyes went wide. "You're pretending, yes, to date, correct? You and Daisy are fake dating. Elliot hissed. No one else knows. Jack liked that. He smiled and leaned in toward Elliot conspiratorially. So why are you fake dating the cute? Well, it started when that ex of hers came into her. Hop and just kinda happened to be there. And one thing to another and now you're proclaiming your love for her at town meetings. Elliot flushed with embarrassment. That's not exactly that happened. It doesn't matter what actually happened. It's what everyone is saying happened, and everyone is saying you were very gallant, and you came to her rescue when the rest of the town was ready for a witch hunt. That's definitely not. Doesn't matter. Jack waved away his protests. The important question, dear Elliot, is why not date the lovely Daisy for real? Elliot opted to shove more muffin in his mouth and pretend he didn't want to talk with his mouth full, instead of answering the question that he'd been rolling over in his mind all weekend. Why not date Daisy for real? He'd had such a nice time with her after the town meeting, and he hadn't stopped thinking about her since. But it was very clear that Daisy wasn't interested in him as anything other than a convenient shield from the town's judgment. Which was fine. He was using her too, intervention, to keep his mom from staging some kind of dating. Anytime his thoughts had wandered into why not dating-tutorial territory, Elliot reminded himself that this whole thing had started because Daisy wasn't over her ex. She'd been so horrified to see him. In fact, she'd roped Elliot into being her fake boyfriend. And then he'd done the same thing back to her. Their relationship, real or fake, was based. Not a great start. No, dating Daisy for real was not an option. She's pretty, Jack went on when Elliot was still silent. She's more than pretty, he blurted out, and Jack's sigh grew. I agree. She's also funny and smart and dustla. Anyone give her any crap at those meetings? Igno, Elliot sighed. So why not go for it? I just got out of a marriage, 2 years ago. Crap. Apparently he'd already filled Jack in on the timeline of his heartbreak. I'm not ready. To be happy? I just ... single quotes, Elliot trailed off, because Jack was clearly not listening anymore. Gabe, the gardener, handyman, Jack's crush, had just walked in the door covered in grass stains with a low-slung tool belt around his hips. Elliot was pretty damn straight, but he could see the appeal. Gabe looked confident. Competent. Elliot would love to feel the way Gabe looked striding into the inn with a screwdriver in one hand and a stepladder in the other. And now he had an answer for Jack. Why not ask Gabe out? He said, and Jack nearly choked. He smacked Elliot on the arm. He will hear you. Elliot laughed. Okay, so you've been drooling over him for months. Just ask him out. Jack glared at him. No way. Why not? He's clearly out of my league. That's bullshit. Ack sighed. Look at him. He has heartbreak written all over him. Exactly, Elliot said, leaning his elbows on the front desk, mimicking Jack's pose as they both watched Gabe dim the ladder to change out a bulb in the chandelier hanging in the middle of the sitting room off the lobby. You're afraid. Which is the same reason I will continue to fake date Daisy. We are cowards. That was the truth of it. Elliot was not ready to try again, with anyone, and certainly not with a woman who had no interest in him. I'm not, Jack muttered even as he frantically started stacking business cards on the desk as soon as Gabe glanced in their direction. Elliot waved hello and Gabe smiled back. Well, all I know is I cannot survive another failed relationship, so I will stick with my fake one, thank you very much. Oh, and he's coming over here. Shit, Jack hissed as he fumbled the business cards, and they scattered all over the desk and floor. Hey Jack, Gabe said with a bemused smile as Jack shoved the cards aside with one clean sweep of his hand. Half went fluttering over the keyboard. A few landed in the muffin basket. Oh, hello, Gabe. I didn't see you come in. Elliot stifled a laugh and Jack jabbed him hard in the ribs. Gabe's smile grew as he ran a hand through his hair. Elle looked effortlessly messy but somehow fell right back into place. Protectly must. How did he do that, Elliot wondered, while Gabe talked to Jack. So do you want me to change the lights out back today? As well, Jack blinked. Apparently he had also been hypnotized. By the hair. Right, yes. That would be great, will do. Anything else? The question hung in the air between them, and Alec suddenly felt like he should leave. But before he could sink away, Jack said, Muffin? And shoved the basket toward a surprised Gabe. Thank you. You're very welcome. Gotta keep your strength up, right? Gabe flashed them one more slightly confused smile before taking his muffin and leaving. What was that? Jack blew out a long breath. TM an idiot. Gotta keep your strength up? With muffins? What the hell is wrong with me? Elliot offered a few firm pats on the back in comfort. I don't know, man. That was pretty rough. Thank you so much for your support during my time of I'm sure it's fine. He seemed pleased about the muffin, Jack groaned. This is not how any of this is supposed to go. Doesn't this guy watch rom-coms? I moved to a small town and now I'm supposed to get the rugged flannel wearing guy. Don't you need to trip and fall and spill your drink on him or something for that to happen? Elliot offered with a grin. He'd watched plenty of those rom-coms with Leah. He knew how it went. Big city girl, or in this case guy, meet small town guy, they crash into each other in some kind of silly scenario, spend some time hating each other and then inevitably fall in love. It was all so simple, so appealing. Did he still watch them now to ease his anxiety and because it was comforting to see things work out? Yes, he did. Oh, shut up. You're the one fake dating the small town Forrest. And you know what happens next, don't you? Of course he knew, but he asked anyway. Maybe he'd feel better if someone else said it. What happens next? You fall in love for real. It happens every time. Elliot's stomach flipped. Nope, not better. Still panicking. Because even if there was a chance they would fall in love, he knew all too well that those movies weren't real, that after the happily ever after, there was still so much life to live. And there were no guarantees that the happiness would last forever. It didn't for him and Leah, not this time. Jack rolled his eyes. Okay, I'm serious. I'm just doing this to help Daisy get the town off this whole curse thing. Rito, really. Okie dokie. Elliot sighed. I know you don't believe me, but neither Daisy nor I are looking for real relationships. We're just doing this to get everyone off our backs. Daisy gets more business, and my mother will return to Tampa happy and finally leave me alone. Whatever you need to tell yourself, bud, Jack said, returning Elliot's not at all comforting pat on the back. Till ask Daisy out for real when you ask out Gabe. That he was about to call his bluff. Jack stared him down, and for a minute Elliot panicked. Be careful, Jack said, jabbing a finger into the center of Elliot's chest. One day I might actually do it. Well, let me know when you do. I have to go. Say hello to Daisy for me, Jack said with a wink. Try not to stare at Gabe's ass all day, he fired back. Jack gasped dramatically and Elliot laughed. Bye, goodbye forever, Elliot. We are no longer friends. Jack called behind him, but Elliot could hear the laughter in his voice. See you tomorrow, Jack, he said with a wave, heading out into the warm spring sunshine. He had to get to the library. Alex from the bookstore had agreed to meet him there, so he could pick their brain about town history. He'd learned at various town meetings that Alex, while one of the younger residents of Dream Harbor, seemed to know an awful lot of its lore. And after going down some in-history rabbit holes, Elliot wanted to know more. Alex was already there when Elliot arrived, sitting at a table by the window surrounded by several small stacks of books. Their short lavender hair was bright in the sunshine. Hey, Elliot, they said with a smile when he approached. Hi, thanks for meeting me. Always happy to help a fellow history buff. Elliot slid into the chair across from Alex, ready to dive. He never got tired of this. Digging into the past, covering how people used to live, wishing he could go see Kay and see it with his own eyes. So, this is a particularly fun one, Alex said, pushing a thin book across the table. Elliot picked it up, turning it over in his hands. Dream Harbor History. Pretty straightforward. A former mayor wrote that back in the 1930s, and it's filled with bizarre stories, Alex said. Their face lit up with the same excitement Elliot felt. I'm not sure how accurate anything is, but it's certainly an interesting look into one of our illustrious leaders. Elliot flipped it open to a dog-eared page in the middle, reading a few paragraphs before he realized what he was seeing. Wait a minute, this mayor thinks he's clairvoyant. Yep, Alex said with a laugh. And so does our current mayor. It's a whole thing, actually. Multiple mayors throughout the years have claimed to have premonitions, dreams, future-telling abilities. There was even one that read people's tea leaves as a side hustle. You're kidding, Alex shook their head. I would never joke about this. They were grinning and Elliot couldn't help but laugh. That's wild. That's Dream Harbor for you. Elliot was still chuckling when Alex passed him another book. This one has more about the inn. It was one of the first buildings in town, and it's one of the few original buildings still standing. The flower shop is one of the others. Really? Alex nodded. That string of buildings, the Daisychain flower shop, the ice cream parlor, the pet shop, they've all been here from the start. Right around the middle of the 18th century, Of course, it housed different businesses at the time. Elliot looked at the page Alex had opened to. An old black and white photo of Main Street from about 60 years after the town was founded was in the center of the page. It was probably one of the first photographs of the town, but Main Street looked eerily familiar, other than the dirt road and horses. And there it was, the building that would become Daisy's flower shop. He wondered if Daisy would want to see this. If she'd want to hear about what he'd found. He might have to visit the flower shop and find